Welcome to Conscious Conversations. Today, we're going to be talking about Hollywood, where millions of people dream of making it. But beneath the red carpet and the bright lights, there is quite a bit of darkness hiding. As you've probably seen, a lot of this now is getting exposed and unraveling. It started with Epstein, Weinstein, Kesha, and now we're seeing it in real time with Diddy, with Cassie, with Britney. The stories we've heard whispers of are starting to surface. And yet, for so long, Hollywood was the thing to idolize, the symbol of having made it. But what happens when the truth doesn't match the dream? Today, we're bringing some light to the shadow, and there is no one better to have this conversation with than someone who was in it, someone who reached the top, saw it for what it really was, and walked away. And most importantly, someone who I trust my life with. If you were watching TV in the 90s, you know exactly who he is. He was the breakout star of the very first Real World and later became the host of MTV's The Grind. Eric Nies was one of the most recognizable faces on TV, and then at the height of his fame, he walked away from it all. He was there, and he saw what most only speculate about. And today, he's sharing why he left and what happened next. Okay, so I want to start from the beginning. Obviously, before we dive into how everything happened for you and where you are now, of course, I have to say that Conscious Concierge and the series Conscious Conversations quite literally would not exist without you. And to anyone who's listening, I mean, obviously to everyone in the 90s you were a household name, but to me you were my next door neighbor growing up. And we detailed our story on an Instagram live. So if you want to go listen to that, you're more than welcome. Obviously, today's about Eric's story. But yeah, Eric was the one who really opened the door for me into the deeper work, meaning beyond therapy, beyond personal development, into the spiritual work. And in summary, when I was at my breaking point, it was you that said how soon can you get to Peru? And the chain of events after that led to Conscious Concierge being born. You were my spiritual Sherpa. And so obviously just so happy to have you here now.
What an incredible journey. I literally remember,
Yeah.
I remember a lot as far as my journey and things that happen with different people at different times are so significant and deeply meaningful. But I remembered our phone call. I remember where I was. I remember where I was standing. I know what I was doing when we had our very first
Wow.
break free from the Matrix call at COVID. I think it was 2020. And
Yeah.
what an incredible journey.
Yeah.
And that you,
Yeah.
obviously, because of our relationship, seeing you jumping on the trampoline when you were a little kid across the street, the trust was already there. So you were just open to everything that I was saying. And no matter how mind jarring it was, or unbelievable or shocking or whatever it is, but you just absorbed it like a sponge.
Yeah, it was definitely, like I said, anyone who wants to know that journey of how that all unfolded, we detailed all of that. But it was, it's anytime I go on a podcast or I talk about the origins of Conscious Concierge, I always mention Eric Nies and how that happened and how it was just the catalyst for me, because I think it's so important. So I'm just so excited to tell your story. I just think right now it's so important. You and I have talked about it for years, and it was one of the first things you shared with me about this idolization of Hollywood and how it really is quite dark. And I was working in TV on the back end in the advertising side. But starting from the beginning, if you can share, how you became famous, really, what was happening for you to get casted on the first ever Real World in New York. And what was that moment like?
I basically dropped out of school. My mom was concerned about what I was going to do with the rest of my life because sports and college, and that wasn't going to happen. And I really was never really interested in school. Um, and I would realize later in my life I wasn't interested in the system of school and the system that
Mm.
school lives
Mhm.
within. And so she said to
Mhm.
me, well, what are you going to do with the rest of your life? I said, I don't know. And she said, well, why don't you try acting, anime? Actually, I
Shout
talked
out
to
to
her today
anime.
and she says hello and she loves you. And yeah,
I love her. She's the real Sherpa
my
of
mom,
all of
my
us.
mom,
Like,
since I was in my late teens, she's the first person that I ever heard the term the good red road. And I had no idea what it meant back then. Um, but my mom used to leave post-its and messages for me when I was partying, when I was in a club 4 nights a week in New York. Um, and one of them, she wrote me this letter when I was in a really dark place, and it was a quote, from Rumi, take the pain and do something useful with it. And I laminated it with tape, and I still have it. 30 something years later. But yeah, she is definitely my guiding
I
light
love that.
and has always
Yeah.
pushed me to the good red road. So thank you, Mom. I'm on the good red road. Yeah.
We love you. Oh my God. Going to her house back then she was like, I was introduced to spirituality just by walking in that house. I mean, like, just the energy, the way that she spoke about things. Like, I knew from a very young age that like this was like a very special family, and I like couldn't quite place it, but I also just felt
Hmm.
something like super different in the home.
Yeah. My mama.
Yeah.
So where was I? Oh yeah, so find a job, do something with your life. And she suggested acting. And at that time, as you know, when I was 18 years old, I wasn't hearing modeling, acting. That was not in the equation. I had a big judgment towards that. But a friend of ours that we grew up with became one of the biggest male models in the world. And he came to me and said, if you want, you could make a lot of money. And when I heard money was what I needed, and, just get as shredded as you possibly can. And when you're ready, we'll take some photos and I'll bring them up to the agency. And once we did that, I walked up into the agency. They took a Polaroid of me and then they immediately took my photo to Bruce Weber's office. Um, that day, I was booked like 2 days later to do a test shoot with Bruce Weber. And the next thing you know, I was in one of his books. And the agency was super stoked about that. So modeling happened first. And so I had an agent,
Okay.
and the real world and the grind was a job, a casting that came through my agency at the time. So that's how it all really happened. Julie Brown left Club MTV and they were looking for a male and a female host to fill her position. And I went up and I auditioned for that first. I got the job. And then they were trying to cast me with a female. And while that casting process was happening, they decided that they were canceling Club MTV. And then right after that is when the casting for the real world came in.
So that's so interesting. Okay, I didn't know that. So then I used to work, for anyone listening, also for MTV in a totally different section of the business. But anyway, that's just a fun fact for us. So okay, so then that was like 1993, right? Or
92.
96? 92. Okay. So then how long, so that was about a year, and during the time of Real World, is that really where things took off and you felt like, okay, I think I'm like famous, or was it more
Well,
when the grind?
and on the real world, when all of the publicists came in and all of the different media outlets, and that was a moment where I realized, wait, I'm doing an interview for the Wall Street Journal, and this is like a TV show, and it kind of hit me at that moment, like this is going to be something big, and it took a
Right.
while for people to kind of wrap their heads around like what we just did. And we were getting press and I
Right.
was getting recognized, but it was probably a week or two after the first couple of episodes of the real world came out, and I got the phone call that
Yeah.
they wanted to bring a dance show back, and they had a block on MTV called "Hanging with MTV," and so they threw in
Mm.
the dance show of "Hanging with MTV" into this 3-hour block. And within, I don't know, 2 months, 2 or 3 months, then I got the call that they were going to change the name. And then they came up with the name The Grind, and they gave us our own slot. And once The Grind hit, it was an explosion of attention and fame. And yeah, it took it to a whole nother level where actually I couldn't go anywhere. Anywhere that I went, I got recognized.
Wow. So was that like exciting for you in the moment? And like where were you at that point? So were you like
Yeah.
party boy, like, okay, this is lit, like I'm famous, like you know what I mean? Like, or
Oh
were you
no, no,
like,
no,
this is
no,
a
no,
little
no.
freaky?
There was nothing. No, there was not. There
You're
was
like, this is lit.
beyond lit because I love music. I love dancing. I'm a house head deep at heart. I mean, that's pretty much the only music that I listen to is deep, soulful house music. Um, and I loved watching MTV. I love watching the videos. I learned how to dance watching Club MTV. So this was like the ultimate
Hmm.
dream come true. I'm now the MC of a international dance show that my friends and my family could come and be on the show. And I was in a club. I was doing what I loved at that moment just passionately. And it was the most incredible ride and experience. The biggest thing for me was that I could bring my friends and my family on the ride with me. And so every club, see, only New Yorkers will really get this because if you haven't
Hmm.
seen Studio 54 or the documentary of Studio 54, at that time, I don't even know what it's like now. I haven't been back to New York or gone to a club in a long time. But back in the day in the 90s, it was almost impossible to get into a club. You you had to be on the list, you had to know the
Yeah.
DJ, you need to know the producer, you need to know the doorman, or you had to be beautiful, or you were dressed and you looked a certain
Hmm.
part because the
Hmm.
the doorman was choosing a certain look and crowd because they had to they were portraying a certain look and a certain feeling, and they wanted the energy and the vibe of the
Hmm.
club to be as lit as possible. But what's really cool about this, and
Yeah.
you'll appreciate this the most, is that before I became famous, when I was just modeling 18, 19 years old, and Ray became super famous. So I was able to get into clubs at a very young age. And before the MTV thing happened, I remember I went to Big City Diner with like 12 of the boys from home. And there's about 50 people outside trying to get in. And I rolled up and I remember, um, what was his name? The door, Gilbert. Gilbert was the doorman. And I walked up and all 12 of us are in the back. Um, and I see him and he sees me and he looks at me and he literally says, he goes, "Ah, the prince is here. Everybody step aside." I mean, it was like a dream. And my friends looked at me and I was kind of shocked. I didn't even know that that was going to happen. But 12 guys, all from Jersey, right through the front door. I don't think we didn't pay for a drink that night. And I was 19 years old. And so that was the taste. But when I became the host of The Grind, man, it was our town.
Mm,
It was our town, and, it was incredible, incredible.
yeah. That is crazy. That's such a quick shot to fame too. I mean, you hear about you hear about people trying to make it for years and years and years, and sounds like you decided, anime was like get it together, and then you're like, I guess I'll try give this a
Mhm.
whirl, and then it just like took off, and then you're catapulted into fame. I remember, I mean, you were dating like Pamela Anderson at one point, and
She
she
went to
was
the bagel
it
shop.
back then, which is
Yeah, in Deal.
in Jersey.
They couldn't believe it, the guys in the bagel shop, man, when they saw her
Yeah.
walk through the door, everybody froze.
That's crazy. I mean, and if that doesn't speak to like also just like, yeah, the height of how much fame there was, she was really, really famous then. So for you to even be dating her, it's like, I mean, anytime I post you that, especially over the age of probably like 45, who really knew like MTV in the 90s, they're like, oh my God, Eric Nies, and it's so fun to think about. So, okay, so you like in a nutshell, it actually was like quite fun for a while and you were partying and you were enjoying, you were having fun and you were young. Um was there any like one memory you have that was just like totally surreal? Like was it like a Biggie or Madonna or like Pac? Like
So, my family, and my brother, and my father was a referee in the NBA. Um, all my uncles
yeah.
were football players. My great great uncle played with Vince Lombardi. When I was in sixth grade, seventh grade, I was going
Yeah.
to basketball games and hanging out with Larry Bird and Michael Jordan and Dr. J and everything as a little kid. Um, so sports was my life. Nobody else really meant anything.
Mhm.
My brother was my idol, but fame and celebrities, that kind of world to me at that time, for a lack of better
Yeah.
words, was kind of corny for me. The whole modeling world and all of that. When
Totally.
you know, yeah,
Yeah. That makes sense. Also, your brother was my first crush ever. My mom was like, I think we need to choose someone younger. He's not quite in your age range. I was like, Kim, I am in love. And I was like 8.
I don't know
She
who
was
was
like,
not in
I
love
don't
with
think so.
John. John was the superstar. Yep.
Yeah. 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 Anywho, back to so you were saying you weren't like phased by it. And that's true. A lot of people don't know that your dad actually was and is now retired, but an
Yep. Yep.
NBA ref, right? So you were already in that world and it wasn't that like
Right. I mean, the only
crazy to
person that
you.
I ever got nervous in front of, and actually my legs got weak, was when I met Michael Jordan, because,
Mm,
he was just beyond. I could go into that, but we don't have enough time. So
yeah.
yeah, when I got
Yeah.
into that world, um, what was most important
Yeah.
to me was having a good time with my friends. That's really all I cared about. We
Mhm.
were on the
Yeah.
party train, and if you weren't on the same train with the same intention, going in the same direction, like, you had to get off of the train. And as you know, all the guys that I grew up with that were going to New York at the time, all of us were on the same page. We all loved house music and
Yeah.
dancing and the scene and the clubs and all of that stuff. So that's all we really cared about. And if you were a celebrity, it was kind of like, nah,
Yeah.
whatever.
So things were good. Things were happy. They were fun. You were like, hanging out with your friends while just like catapulting
Yeah.
to fame, which is what a lot of people back then desired. So, what was the moment or like the series of moments that made you walk away
Okay.
from all
That's a
of
big
that?
one. But, just to give to perspective, at that time, 92, 93, 94, the grind was in, this is without internet, the grind was in 90 million homes around the world. Like we were doing shows for Hong Kong. This show is dedicated to everybody in China. So
That's
we were the
crazy.
second
90 million homes
largest
is a
TV
lot.
show like ever to Baywatch. Baywatch was just over 100 million.
And how long? That's crazy. The second watch show to Baywatch. That's a really crazy stat, especially just from me working in TV, like, and knowing the amount of homes that is. That's a lot. So I guess actually before getting into that question, the big question, how many years were the good years of the Real World and the grind and all of that? And the Brady
Yeah.
Bunch movie, I remember you were in. Like, how long was
Well,
the
the
good
first 3
years in
years were
Hollywood?
mind blowing and incredible, and I was skyrocketing. Every studio, every producer, directors, they were like, "Can he sing? Can he act? Like, what else can he do? We want him on Broadway. We want him over here. We want him over there." Um, and then the progression of that is model, commercials. Now I'm a TV host. And so the next thing would be acting. So I said, okay, I'm going to start taking some acting classes and we'll see. So I moved to Los Angeles, got an acting coach, got a big agent for acting, and I
Mm.
started going down that path. Um,
I
yep.
didn't know you moved to LA. Oh, okay. So you were pursuing even
hmm
further
And
that
it
whole
was
path.
about
Okay.
to explode. Um, there were some huge parts that started coming in. I actually, at this time, I had a holding deal, a development deal with Universal Studios to do my own talk show that was going to compete with the late night talk shows. And it was called Eric's House. And it would have been the first time where you had a reality TV house setting where celebrities would come to the house and hang out at the house, and you would do the interviews in different places like the backyard cooking burgers, shooting hoops with Shaq, and the musical guest would come over and hang out in the garage in the studio playing music with one of the other roommates that were in the house. It was this whole thing. So that was happening. Joel Schumacher tried to cast me as Robin in the Batman movie with Val Kilmer, and Joel Schumacher was trying to book me in other movies. He was like, you can have the part if you want, across Robert De Niro in the movie Flawless. But I when I did that Brady Bunch movie, so I'm
I
sitting in
remember
my
that.
my trailer and I'm waiting, waiting to do my scene, and my Gemini brain is like, this is not fun. I'm not enjoying myself. And
Yeah,
like I knew in that moment, like
right.
acting was not for me. And I didn't want to do it.
So I didn't realize. So you moved to LA, you were pursuing that, you realize things are good, things are fun, but then you dabble in the acting and you're like, okay, maybe not. And then what was the moment or series of
Yep.
moments that made you really
Yeah. Okay. This
want to
is
walk
this is where
away
it
from
gets
all of this?
loaded. So I'm working on the grind.
Okay.
I'm on set in New York, and CNC Music Factory
Hmm.
comes to perform on the show. And along with CNC Music Factory comes Gariano Lorenzo, or Gary Henry, aka Gariano Lorenzo, who was a producer, songwriter, and he worked with CNC Music Factory. At that time, Dick Scott, who's a manager of Boys to Men, New Kids on the Block, Mark Wahlberg, he becomes my manager.
Hmm.
But Dick Scott, but he doesn't know
Dick
what to do
Scott.
with me because I'm the first reality breakout star, and I'm not a singer, I'm not an actor, wasn't really sure what to do with me. So he passed me along to this guy Gary. And Gary
Gary.
was a predator. And that when Gary pursued me for about 3 months,
And was he a manager to any other like big celebrities?
He had a lot of friends. Like I had lunch with Roberta Flack, um, George Benson. I went to Sylvia Robinson's house, who created the Sugar Hill Gang. These are all like 70s, 80s, into the 90s big artists. And that was really his thing. He was more in the music world, but I wanted to be in music. Like I wanted to create a record label. I wanted to produce
Hmm.
house music and do all of that, which I did a little bit when I created my own entertainment company, and I had the loft downtown, and we had a music studio, which was 5 years of just incredible fun. But before all that happened, this guy came in and he was preying upon me, which I didn't know. And after about 3 months, I finally said, okay, I'm going to work with this guy, and he could connect me with all the record labels and make all this happen. And that was the very,
Oh, he was pursuing you like and that at that point just as a client. Like he
yep,
was
he
like
wanted to be
pursuing
my
you as a
manager, but he
client.
wanted something else. And I had no idea what was going on. And then that's the very first time that I heard the word Illuminati and New World Order.
By
And so when
him.
I met him, and I agreed for him to be my manager, and we were going to do all of these things, it got very dark, very controlling, very manipulative, and brainwashing. And he introduced me to the dark side of Hollywood. And this is what you wanted to talk about. So now, how I want to
Yeah.
preface this. So, why would I be a person that you could talk to about this? And the reason why is because I was a victim of it. And so, through this brainwashing and manipulation, and finding out for the first time about this dark world within the entertainment industry. And earlier I said I'm a Gemini, so I'm curious and I ask questions, I
Me too.
analyze, I look deeply, I'm feeling what you're feeling. When my intuition is on fire, I can sense things and feel things and all that, as you know, and that's the work that I do now, how I help people to heal and liberate themselves. So, um, I went down the rabbit hole for about 6 months with a few of my friends of the Illuminati and where it got started. And these,
And was he sharing that he
not
was
yet,
like a part of it or that he knew about
not
it?
yet. He said to me one time when, so we're diving deep into the Illuminati, and we're also diving deep into the Bible. So he's using parts of the Bible,
Wow.
mostly Revelations is, what he was referring to and having me look at. And all my friends and my family and everybody like, dude, this guy's no good, he's no good, he's no good. But I'm 100 miles an hour, super famous, partying. I was also destructive with, using at that time party drugs in the clubs, because I was escaping all of the trauma that I experienced when I was a child and in my past lives that I brought with me into this lifetime now. And he actually said to me one
Mm-hmm.
time
Mm-hmm.
that I have to transfer all of this information to you because you're the chosen one. And we need to connect in order to
Wow.
do that. And then he told me and my friends that he was dying and that he had a certain amount of time to transfer this information to me. And then that's where the manipulation came in. And then eventually he would molest me and basically, through brainwash and manipulation, molested me, raped me, or whatever you want to look at, or how you want to, paint that picture. But that's when I completely lost myself and my relationship with
Oh, of
MTV, my
course.
relationship with Universal Studios, my agent, and everything. So eventually, this guy robbed me of like $350,000, my car, my apartment, my I lost myself. And so that's when I started to
Yeah.
crumble and fall out of the entertainment industry. But because that happened, I looked deeply into the entertainment industry. I wanted to know who I was working for, who was running the show, and what the connections were between like the handlers, as far as the agents, the managers, the executives, and who were the executives speaking to, and who owned all of that, and what were the other corporations and business that it was connected to, and why does television programming even exist? And there was a website in the 90s when internet first came out in the mid 90s. There was a website called killyourtv.com, and it literally had all the information about the entertainment industry and what its purpose is and all of that. And so while I was doing all of this investigate all these this research and investigating all of it, I'm still in the scene. So now I'm going to parties. Now I'm hyper aware of who I'm talking to, how they're talking to
Mm,
me. I'm looking at other people and what's happening with them. And I go to parties in Hollywood and I would see some stuff. I actually saved an 18-year-old girl from being groomed and brought into a, prostitution ring by very wealthy people and celebrities in that world.
I've never heard you break it down that way, that like he was the one that woke you up, but also he was the one that manipulated you. And also, you then were actively partaking in Hollywood, in TV, but now you
Correct.
knew what you were dealing with. So now you were like, that's like a fishbowl vibe. That's crazy. So
There's
then,
a lot of detail in all this to unpack all of it.
yeah,
But I will say this because of what you just said. Now, at that time, I wanted to kill him. I actually had friends that were
of
very
course.
close to me that were protectors of mine that would have killed anybody on the spot. And they came to me and said, "We will take him out." And I sat with it for a little while. And obviously, I said, "No, I don't want to live with that for the rest of my life." Many, many, many years later, not as a segue, just want to bring this in. But when I first started with ayahuasca, I'm in the jungle in ayahuasca and I'm battling, fighting, squirming. It's like this crazy energy inside of my body. And I screamed in my head, "What am I fighting?" And boom, the manager's face, Gary's face came in front of me. And grandma or the guides or the spirits or whatever, they were like, if he didn't come into your life at that time and shake you up, you would be dead. He and I see him now as an angel. And angels can show up in many different ways. If we're talking about light and dark and entities and shamanism and all that stuff, that's another
Mm,
conversation. Maybe we'll talk about that later. But
yeah,
everything serves,
we'll get
depending
there.
upon
Yeah,
how you perceive, depending upon how you process and how you sit within yourself. The light and the dark are there to serve each other. Whole nother conversation. So
yeah,
when that happened,
yeah.
I went into the rage and the anger and the pain of all of that. And then they came in and with gratitude and thanking him. And then I cried for like 2 hours and I was
Mhm,
alchemizing the energy that I was carrying in my
mhm.
body from that trauma.
Yeah. I mean, so many questions. I think, well, because I definitely want to get into that and like how you transmuted it. But to zoom back in, so were you telling anybody that this was going on? Like anyone that knew him? And were people just like not taking
No, I
to it,
didn't
or
know
you
what was
didn't
going
feel
on. I was
comfortable sharing?
brainwashed and I was trying to keep my career alive while I was dating Pamela Anderson and had the one of the biggest TV shows in the world and had all these people coming at me. So at that time is when I started to crack and crumble, and I was using, my brother was trying to get to me, my friends were trying to get to me, and I couldn't hear them. You know,
And that's so confusing that he's like, I mean, I don't know how you feel about going into this, but like that's so confusing that he was a man too,
yeah,
you
but that
know?
plays out
Like
that also plays out
I
in the
can't even
trauma of my life, my relationship with my father, the relationship with my brother, what that was like, other men that came into my life that would betray me and take advantage of me because I was looking for a father. And my father left when I was 11, and my father was never present and there emotionally and intelligently. He was disconnected. So I was imprinted
yeah.
with the ancestral lineage program, behavioral programming from my lineage. And I'm the one in my lineage that breaks the cycle.
Mhm. So, I mean, I wish so many people can get there in their journey with that, but we'll get there too because you help people with that. But I guess my one of my questions before like finishing this section is like when you the last thing you were saying was about the girl that you saved from being in brought into like a prostitution ring. Did you see now obviously on the heels of Diddy and what's going on with Cassie
Mm-hmm.
and like honestly what we saw with Kesha and so many other people, just to name a few, these things are coming out. So when we reconnected all those years ago, one of the first things you were telling me about was what was really going on behind the scenes. So were you seeing what's kind of coming out now back then? Or did you,
Yeah.
how do I say it? Like, what are some things you saw back then that you have known all this time were
I've been to
going
a Diddy
on
party.
outside of just you?
I chose
It's
not
like,
to go to the after hours party but I did not go to whatever they call it afterwards. And the reason why I never yeah, the
the freak
Diddy's
off,
not the only one that was doing freak off
the freak
parties. They
off.
were all freak off parties because you went there, people got drunk, they're doing drugs or whatever, and the party happens. The party doesn't stop. It just moves into another room. It moves to, either you're in the circle or you're not in the circle. But for me, reflecting back on what I was saying earlier, I went out with my boys. We had an agenda. We had an intention of, and I started to hang out with people in Hollywood, but as you know, they were nowhere, not even closely as entertaining as the people that we grew up with. All I needed was my crew.
Mm-hmm.
There was nothing else that was going on that was more interesting. And we didn't need
Yeah,
to go to a party like that to pick up girls in that way because it was being thrown at us.
right.
If anything, the people that were going to those freak off parties, that were going to those types of parties, they wanted to hang out with us. And they tried to come into our circle. There were many celebrities that tried to come into our circle, but they had to pass the front line. And it didn't matter how famous you were, how much money you had, because all my friends had money and they all did what they did. They owned clubs and restaurants and did this and they were drug dealers and, like we had all that. And so, um, when I would be at those places and be, it's not like they're inviting you. Oh, we want to invite you to come to this party. We could have gone if we wanted to or not. But, I'll say this humbly and a little egotistically, but when I was 20 years old, 22 years old and I was super famous, dating somebody like Pamela Anderson. It wasn't a stretch to hook up with a beautiful girl. And so that was when you're 22 years old and you're going out, whether you're a guy or you're a girl, you're looking to hook up with somebody. You're playing the field, you're in the game. And so, what I would experience, I would see it from the outside. Like when I'm at the Diddy party, I'm seeing Sean in the pool with 20 girls around him and he's by himself. So,
Yeah.
and then I'd hear stories,
Yeah.
about it. And then I'd go to Hollywood parties
Yeah.
and like the one where the who was 18 and, you know, she was beautiful. She became my girlfriend actually after that for a little while. But as I'm floating around the parties, I'm hearing conversations, I'm talking to people, they're inviting you or it's making suggestions on here and there. And then when I got sober after that night and I realized that all these young girls that are in there, they were potential clients and workers. And I woke up in the morning and I found her number because a friend of mine got her number and I called her up and I was like, you need to pack up your things right now, get in your car and come to my house in Venice. You don't know where you are. You don't know who those people are that you are with. And you need to, she came over. I told her what was going on. I said, get in your car and go home. Drive back to Florida because this place is going to eat you up. It's not good.
Yeah. So with
Hmm.
the manager, Gary, let's call him by his name. Did that ever get pub out in did Gary ever
Oh, I've
get
been
exposed
talking
to the
about it
public?
so what happened with Gary, right, is when I found out what was going on and I was at
Yeah.
rock bottom and I was standing on the Hudson River looking at the Viacom building with a knife on my wrist, ready to take my life. That's the first time that I heard that little still voice in my head and I connected with this cloud that was floating down the river and I just heard this still voice in my head, just go home, just go home. And I kind of went into a trance. I went home and my family, nobody could talk to me or touch me for like 2 weeks. I just cried all day long. I went to St. Mary's Church, St. Mary's School. I'm praying, trying to find, my way back. And but now I know too much, you know, and how can I
Yeah.
go back into that world after what just happened to me and know who I'm working for? And so that's when MTV made
Yeah.
$100,000 mistake on my residuals for my workout videos at the time. And then I called up Kim. Kim called me. She said, you got this check. Do you want me to open it? And they realized they made a mistake and they couldn't take it back. And then my family, I was in Colorado. I went snowboarding by myself for a month. I needed to just clear my head and get out of there. But that's when my family came in and Kim and John, and they were like, you got to do something. You can't just walk away from this completely. You can maybe create something on your own. And then that's when I created my own entertainment company. I was working with Rob Harper, my brother, Andy Brosniak, DJ Romaine, Matt Keys. Kim was my manager. And we started EN Entertainment
Hmm.
and that went on for about 5 years in Lolita. Nolita.
Oh,
Nolita.
I didn't realize. So you stayed for a bit
Yes,
longer, but like
me
on
and
your own
John
terms.
created an abdominal machine. I was going to do my own workout videos. I tried to
Yes,
do my
I remember that.
grandmaster's wife gave me $150,000 to produce and create my own dance show. And we shot it at Webster Hall. I hired all the production people from the grind And, we created these 2 episodes and I tried to sell it. But at that point, now I'm going up against the machine.
Yeah, so when it's like when we say you walked away, really what you walked away
Yes.
from was the machine, right? Like you were still doing things on your own, but had you continued with management in that
Mhm.
system in that world, you would have continued on in that world, but you walked away and went independent.
My trust in that world was completely broken, because and also there were things that happened with MTV and the producers from MTV with the grind, because a lot of what you saw or what people saw on the grind, the dancer shout outs, a day in the life of a dancer, bringing DJ Morales on the show, the performances of the dancers, these were all my ideas. And I kept going to MTV with ideas to further extend my career. And they kept shutting me down, shutting me down, shutting me down. So I was like, I saw my 3 to 5 year window with MTV coming to a close. But because my workout videos were doing so good, they were platinum selling workout videos. And I created a whole division, a whole new division at MTV for video sales. Video sales didn't exist. Like Beavis and Butthead and all those videos and stuff, they came after the grind. The grind launched the whole home video
Mm,
department of MTV. So they're making millions and millions and millions of dollars off me and trying to do things like I would show up on set of my workout video and Keds is the sponsor. And they want me to put Keds on, but it's not in my contract. So I gave him all the middle finger and
right.
walked off of the set and said, "We'll find somebody to host your workout video because I'm not doing it unless I get a piece of Kets." And that is the reality of the entertainment industry. They are, all of them, sharks, and they're all doing everything that they
Do you
can
think
to
yeah.
get as much as they can and pay as little as possible. That is the design of that machine.
Do you think most people in the industry know what's going on from, well, I guess I should say the sexual abuse that happens in Hollywood, you experienced it, and now we're hearing about it. Like the stories are
Yep.
leaking, right? Everything that they were hiding and kind of keeping at bay is coming out. Do you think most
Yep.
people in the industry know
Yeah, they
what's
sell their
going on and
souls.
they're
They're
turning a blind eye?
multimillionaires. They're super famous. They come from some small town in the middle of Nebraska. Their dream is to be a singer and a dancer or an actor. And then they finally get there. And a lot of them are like, "Oh, well, we'll take you to the next level if you do this, this, and that for us." The casting couch and all that stuff. It's all very, very, very real. Very, very, very real. And
Yeah.
you get to a point where you realize they control me. But now things are changing because of internet, and you can make your own music and put it out and do your own thing. But in Hollywood, and being an actor and being in that world, or having a major record label spending millions of dollars to promote your music, it's, if you can't see it now with Spotify and YouTube and how many incredibly talented people there are out there that are making music that is much better than pop music, than the people that are at the top. The reason why the pop music does so well is because of the machine underneath it that is feeding it. But, thank God to people like
Mhm.
Prince, who was the very first person that said, I'm not I'm not going to be a slave to this machine anymore. And I'm going to sell my own music through my own channel off of this new thing called the internet. And so now they're trying to do everything they can and trying to figure out how to control art.
Yeah.
in whatever way that they can and control people. But that
Yeah.
global system of control, the global matrix of control and
Yeah.
manipulation is all breaking down. It's all falling apart and they're losing control.
I think what's happening with Britney Spears, I don't know if you're aware or anyone listening, like it's it's like everything we're talking about, it's like watching that in real time. I mean, she was the most like the epitome of like pop fame, what everyone desired to be as a young girl, and now like just watching what's
Mhm.
going on and seeing like the result of that. Her ex Kevin Federline just wrote a book, and he basically said like heroin is not the most powerful drug, it's fame. And you're seeing the result of what happens when you are in that machine
Yes,
in real
but
time.
you can go deeper into fame. It's attention, and what is wanting
Yeah.
the attention? What is wanting the attention in the human body is the traumatized child.
Yeah, why do you think people idolize fame so
That's a
deeply?
big one to unload. But, when you're talking about childhood trauma and attention, you need to dissect and look at the environment that that individual grew up in. What was the environment like with mom and dad? You're talking about ancestral lineage programming, you're talking about imprinting, and you're talking about this desire and this want to be seen. But what really wants to be seen and what really wants the attention is the lonely little boy and little girl inside that didn't get attention from mom, didn't get attention from dad. This is not in all cases. It's not in all cases. But when you have somebody like Brittany who's spiraling out of control, and then you look at the relationship
Mhm.
that she has with her parents, and you want to, if you really want to understand what's going on with Brittany, take a look at her mom and her dad and look at the environment that she grew up in. Because the reason why Brittany is acting out
Yeah.
in this way right now is because there's unresolved emotional trauma that's stored in her body and she doesn't know what to do with it.
I Me and you, I mean, I could talk about this for hours, but obviously like I even feel bad talking about it because of how much she doesn't want to be talked about, but just from like a trauma perspective, and I don't know, maybe I'll include this, maybe I won't, but like I look at her and I see sexual trauma, emotional trauma, abandonment. I can see it all over. And I'm like, why is no one getting her proper support in the world that we live in, which is like, it's the first thing you can see with somebody. And I think this is like, this is really why I personally created the service, was because I was like, people do not know what
Mhm.
is out there in terms of support. But yeah, I think without even going down that rabbit hole, net, it's like, yeah, what we're seeing on a live stage is emotional trauma playing out, sexual trauma, and all of those wounds. And so, yeah. Um, okay. So ultimately, you decided to leave
Sort
Hollywood,
of.
entertainment industry, all of it.
Yeah, no, I'm I'm
Really?
I'm in
No?
and I'm
Tell
out.
me. Well, I guess I should rephrase that and say, in that moment,
Yeah.
you obviously had two options. You could have continued with the machine
Yep.
that was in the entertainment industry then, which you would have kept catapulting you to mega fame, but you decided to ultimately leave and leave just like the spotlight in general, went on a journey of deep healing, plant medicine, shamans, spirituality, you traveled the world,
Mhm.
all the things, right? Um, I guess I'm trying to like in a nutshell. Because it's like so much, but I mean, yeah, in a nutshell, that chapter after the entertainment industry
Mhm.
was all about healing, right? And the first real healing that you ever
Well,
got,
the
would you
real
say?
world was my first spiritual experience because I was watching myself on
Mhm.
TV and I got to see myself and I got to see what I liked, what I didn't like, how I responded, how I acted. I look a little nervous there. How come I'm not talking here? How come I'm not talking there? So, spirituality to me is not about religion at all. It's simply about looking within yourself and being able to go deep
Mm.
within yourself to unpack and unravel what it is that you feel about yourself. So
Yeah. That's a beautiful, I think that's great. Right now, spirituality is like trending. And I like how you explain that because I think it's like, it's trendy to be like, wearing like the flowy clothes and like, go to the ceremonies and all the things. But it's like, you just explained it.
no, well, you said
It's
it's
not any
trending.
of that.
It's
It,
cool to be
it's
spiritual.
trending. Yeah, it is
So
trending.
I'm gonna go to the spiritual
Right.
gathering and I'm gonna put on my spiritual mask when the reality of it is real deep, humble spirituality does not seek anything outside of itself or need anything outside of itself to validate what is within. The more deeply spiritual you
Mm.
become, the farther away you get from the trendy spiritual community.
As always, I only share products I personally use, love, and feel aligned with. And Araza Beauty is one I literally can't stop talking about. I use it every single day. It's a non-toxic, clean makeup brand, and my absolute favorite product is the Coconut Cream Foundation. It's buttery, creamy, smells like heaven. I am obsessed. So if you're looking to upgrade your makeup with something clean, conscious, and actually good for your skin, this is such a good one to try. Araza is giving my community 15% off with the code CONCIERGE. And if you purchase something using my link or code, I receive a small treat too. Their tagline is, "If looks could heal," and honestly, it's giving exactly that. Let me know if you try it and what you think. Back to the show. Yeah. And you have, you helped me immensely in the beginning of the journey. You said something to me. I literally tell every single person who comes to my consults, every single person who's like, I can't take this anymore. I can't do this. Life is so hard. I'm like, my friend Eric Nies sat me down in Peru because I was like, well, I was just stamping out fires. And you said to me, because I just kept like getting through something and then it would be something else. And I'd be like, oh my God, here we go again. Now I need to get over this. And you were like, the sooner you can accept that the entire purpose of what we're doing here on earth is literally to experience life and have feelings and experience the good and the bad, it's going to make your time here much better.
Yeah.
And I was like, what are you talking about? Just tell me how to get over my ex. And I was like, I don't care about what you're saying. But you were just like, it's not the ex. It's not what's like your pimples. It's not like your illness and your swollen belly. It's literally all of it. And I was like, it
Mhm.
took me so long. But all that to say, I think now that you've found so much healing and now you're healing other people, which we'll get into, helping heal other people, take us like a little bit, like give us a little piece of how you found forgiveness and how you see the man that basically blew up your life, for lack of better words, as an angel in your life.
Alchemy. We're talking about energetics, alchemy. Huh. The Native Americans had this way. I don't want to call it a belief because I feel that beliefs can be limiting. Oh, I believe in this, but then there's like a trillion other things that you close yourself off to. But they say that the only time that you go backwards, we're talking about the journey of a soul, the evolution of a soul, the ascension of a soul. The only time that you go backwards in your life is to revisit something that happened in your life that is holding you back from moving forward. And we can use the words of acceptance, forgiveness, letting go, surrender, right? These are all things that we hear in the spiritual community, in the spiritual world. You sit with the medicine, you got to surrender. Well, what does that mean? Because if you've never surrendered before, how would you know what that feels like? So you only truly understand surrendering when you surrender to a feeling. And so it took me many years to get to this place. I had my grandmaster who I trained with and lived with for 8 years, an eighth generation grandmaster of Chinese medicine and martial arts. Um, and he said to me when I first met him, that we've known each other for many, many lifetimes. And I was his teacher, he was my teacher, and this lifetime, he's my teacher. And he said to me, you have a very big mission here on this planet. And he told me some things about my soul and where I'm from, why I'm here, and what I need to do to get ready for what's coming. And the training that I went through with Grandmaster was like, if you've ever seen a Shaolin video or documentary on Shaolin monks, it was like that. It's very painful. And so I got comfortable for years in inflicting pain on myself with this training. And so that was 8 years. And then 8 years after that, that's when I went on my own spiritual seeking and I became a raw foodist for years. I started doing long
Hmm.
fasts and cleanses in the desert. I went through the beauty way. I went
The
through
beauty way.
the Native American medicine wheel, which is kind of like a rite of passage or like a vision quest. And so, I read some books just to see what the other masters or other teachers, gurus, or whatever talked about. So when you talk about forgiveness and you talk about acceptance and you talk about, um, how did you do that? Well, grandmother ayahuasca assisted me in the very first time that I was confronted with that rage and that anger that I had towards Gary for my career falling apart. But in the spirit world, I was able to open up myself in that moment and access a part of myself that is not trapped in the 3D matrix, whether you want to call it your oversoul, your higher self, or whatever it is. So the plant medicines can open up a bridge to timelines, multiple dimensions, because they are not confined by the thinking of the mind. And so when I had that experience 15 years ago, or however long it was in the jungle, where I sat in all that pain and all that anger, then it brought me into gratitude. And I'm sitting there crying, thanking this man who'd like almost killed me and and took away everything in my career. But at that time in my life, if I continued on the self-destructive path that I was on, what they revealed to me is that you would be dead. So what I thought was the worst thing that happened to me in my life was actually one of the greatest. And I'm with Grandmaster one day, and Grandmaster, oh my God, I miss him so much. He's the most incredible human being I've ever met in my life. He could do things that were just so mind blowing. He did this thing called vibrational reading where he would touch your body and he could read the Akashic records of your soul front to back.
Hmm.
And he would warn me at times. There were two predators that were going to try and take me in. And I was leaving his house and he said to me, he goes, when you go back to New York, there's going to be two men that are going to approach you. Don't trust them. And like a week later, I'm riding my bicycle or skateboard down Fifth Avenue, and these two guys pulled me over, tried to tell me that they were a part of Tommy Hilfiger and they wanted to bring me in to do some photo shoots and stuff like that. And they didn't know who I was. They didn't, and I'm thinking these guys, they got no idea who they're talking to. But remember, I remember Grandmaster telling me, "Oh, I'm like, oh my God, these are the two dudes," and I'm like, "Nah, guys, I'm good. Keep on moving, you know." But he was just he could appear in a ball of light in people's rooms that I would bring to visit with him for healing. So I don't know if I was lucky, but I think karmically, for my soul, my divine blueprint of coming into this life, me calling in Grandmaster and him calling me, it's all divinely orchestrated.
Mhm.
And he said to me,
Yeah.
um, one day, he goes, "You know that that man who you let do that to you?" And I'm like, "Huh?" Because I didn't tell him. At that time in my life, I didn't tell anybody. I was embarrassed. I was ashamed. I was carrying shame and guilt around everything that had happened. And he goes, "He a good man." And I got pissed. I was angry. And he goes, "You'll see. In the future, you'll know why." So my grandmaster would reveal things to me about my future and about things that would come to pass. And, you know, he would share these things with me about my mission and what I'm doing here. So
Wow. I want to get into your mission and what you're doing here.
the stuff I saw with Grandmaster is so mind blowing, but I would regularly see spirits coming to visit me at Grandmasters to observe what I was doing.
I mean, I remember being young and hearing all about him between John and you, and I was like, I gotta meet this guy. And John
Ye-
would be like, he flew
yeah.
across the room and he was on the ceiling, and I was like, what? I was like, the nieces are so cool. My mom was like, what are they talking about? But okay, so now the information you've got was you have a big mission here. And first,
Yep.
you're going to go through a deep process yourself. And then I know that you've helped a lot of people heal, including myself, obviously, right? Like you're like a Sherpa and you bring them towards this deeper work. Tell us a little bit about the work that you're doing
The
now to
work
help
that I
people
do now
heal.
is the work that I've done on myself. So I don't label myself as anything. But what I've done for myself is completely heal my ancestral lineage and all the trauma signatures from my own physical body. Um, and then last year, I cleared my soul line. And I've had to go through those initiations and all of that to clear all of the energy and distortion out of my body. And so, what I do for other people is what I've done for myself. So, I have a deep understanding of healing trauma. I have a deep understanding of what it feels like and looks like to do ancestral lineage trauma. And because I was molested as a child, I lost my virginity to a woman when I was 12 years old who raped me. Then I was molested again by a man. But what I would find out is that I have gone through a lot of sexual trauma in many of my lifetimes, a lot of betrayal. And so, going back to
Mhm.
the beginning of the conversation of why we're doing this at all, when you're talking about Hollywood and you're talking about the darkness within that and the sexual trauma, probably not a time to talk about this now, but I will plant the seed and other people are talking about it. You and I have talked about this. Um, I've had to do this work to prepare myself so that I can hold space in a very divinely harmonic, masculine, and feminine energy of balance to be able to hold a frequency for sexually traumatized children. Now we're getting into trafficking and however dark you want to hear or turn a blind eye to. But the reality of what is going on with children all around the world and why this is happening with Diddy and Epstein and all this information is slowly coming into our view, slowly, because for the nervous system to accept that there's something that exists in our world and the people that are doing it are controlling your life. They control the entire system that you work in, and you are responsible for feeding it with your money, taxes. So there's a system that has been designed to basically vampire your energy and your hard earned work that is feeding a global system that is feeding off of the innocence of children to control everything that's happening on the planet. People talk about that money controls the world or oil, energy controls the world. What controls the world is the secret of what's happening to the children. Because when you talk about it shamanically and what happens when you have a traumatized individual whose sexual chakra is shut down, that is where your creative expression is supposed to come from. Comes up from here. You feel it. This is where we create. This is your life force energy. And then your heart feels this love and this passion for doing something. And then you bring it to the world. But when that sexual chakra is shut down, okay, why am I talking about this and how do I know? Because that happened to me. I'm not making this up. I'm speaking from personal experience. It's important for me to say that. And also, what I'm saying right now is actually a transmission to your soul, whoever's listening to this, because there's going to come a time where you're either going to have to come to terms with accepting this reality, or you're going to continue to shut yourself down from it. Now, what happens when you open yourself up to it, and what happens when you close yourself down to it? It either speeds up your ascension process or it slows it down with the resistance that you have created within yourself because you're neglecting and abandoning this part of yourself that came here to experience this light and dark. So when the world finds out what's really happening with the children, there's going to be a wave, a tsunami of love and compassion and empathy and heartbreak that, oh my God, this is really going on. And you see, it's slowly starting to come out. It cannot be stopped. The
Yeah.
question is, are you aware? And if you are aware, you know why you're aware because you're interested. You want to know. And if you're not aware, there's a part of you that's shutting yourself off for that. But if you're listening to this, you're now opening yourself up to it because we're moving from the third dimension through the fourth dimension into the fifth dimension.
It's the red
Correct.
pill,
And the ancient
blue
ones,
pill.
the elders, the history books and the calendars have all told us about this time of great awakening, the great awakening and the great purification. So the question is, well, what are we purifying? What's being purified and what is awakening? It's our souls. So, what I'm talking about and the work that I do is I help people, assist people in waking up, and I assist people in purifying their ancestral lineages and their soul line. And I wake them up and help them to remember who they really are and clear away the cobwebs and pull out all the weeds of all of the distortion and all the energies that they're carrying around in their body that is not giving them a clear vision of who they really are.
It's amazing. Everything you just said is so good. I don't even know where to
Double
double click
click.
on, but I do have a lot. I mean, no, I mean, yeah, it's. I love that you said like if you're listening, it's a transmission because yeah, there was something about the breadcrumbs you were leaving me through the years, and I never underestimate the power of planting a seed, and I think that yeah, what I love about you is that you, if someone's open and willing and ready, you're there. You're not going to push it on them, and you know, and you drop the seeds, and when someone's really ready, they come. And I mean, I think that that's all we can do, and I think that there's a lot that's going to happen and open up. But I'm curious, do you feel like everyone here has a soul mission, or are some people just here to
Now
experience and
we're all on
enjoy?
mission. We're the collective
Feels that way.
consciousness of every soul on this planet is here to witness the ones that are going to be here for the next 30 years. You're going to witness a star system, planet, Earth, completely transform into a planet of love and light and become a star kingdom. And we all need each other. We're all doing this together. We wouldn't be
Yeah.
able to do what we're doing without everybody who's here because everybody's soul, the origin of everybody's soul is special. It's beautiful and it's powerful. And, sometimes, because of the enslavement of the planet for thousands of years, the hijacking of this planet, since it was hijacked, that the fall of Lemuria and the fall of Atlantis, at that time when we were there, we communicated with the star people. There were ships coming in and out. We talked to the whales and the dolphins. We were all one family. We were all part of it. And, you could travel in and out of the system at will. The Lemurians could be in a human form, but then they could go into their light body. A lot of people don't know about that the monks in the Himalayas, if they go through a 9-year process and don't have one negative thought, they can disappear into their rainbow body, and it's been observed. So we're talking about light and darkness, fear and love. What are you carrying around in your body that's not serving you? How do I release it? How do I let it go? How do I accept and forgive the things that happened to me or that I've done to other people? So here's a quick wake up call for everybody.
Yeah. In layman's terms, what do you feel?
You created your life. You are responsible for every single experience, light and dark, that has happened to you within the divine blueprint of your soul. You, as a soul, chose to come to a planet of water. You are 80% water. The planet is 80% water. You are air, fire, water, and earth. That's what your physical body is made up of. Those four elements, they live in harmony with each other and they react to each other the same way all the time. But when the mind gets involved and the mind starts creating stories, And in those stories, judgment, shame, guilt creates fear, which is a certain vibration and a certain frequency. When you go into energies of love and compassion and empathy and forgiveness, it's a complete different vibe that you're creating in your body with your mind. And so this is where ancestral lineage programming comes in. And that's why the whole design and the whole setup of this global network system is to control your mind, what you think, what you observe. What are you bringing into your field, and what are you projecting out into it? This is something, there's nothing more important in your life than going within. And this is the reason why. If you love your husband, you love your wife, you love your kids, you love your friends, whatever it is that you love about this life, if you're not taking the time to look within yourself and to understand how you're showing up in the world with or without your mask, why are you showing up in the world the way that you are? This is something that every single human being needs to think about deeply. And that's why this time is so special. But it's also why it's so challenging and terrifying and painful,
Hmm.
because you, right? You know what I'm talking
Yeah,
about
don't even.
because you feel it. You've gone down that path. You've gone down that journey. That's what the
Yeah.
medicine.
I'm also I'm also holding my swollen stomach for 2 years, which every doctor in the world will tell me it's this
It's
and that,
emotional.
and I'm like, I know exactly what it is. It's the fear.
Yep.
It's all of it, and I just hold on to it. And every day I'm like, get this out of me. But yeah. Anyway, last question would be for someone who wants to get started doing this work, is plant medicine the only way, or are there other ways that
No,
people
there's
can look within?
there are other ways. The ultimate way, which takes a lot of discipline, a lot of patience, a lot of discipline, a lot of patience, a lot of courage, a lot of perseverance, a will, and a
Vipassana.
courage to keep going, keep going, keep going. Not many people have that discipline, but you got to practice, is Vipassana. Because Vipassana simply is to objectively observe the sensations in your body equanimously. But it's not easy for people to get equanimous in uncomfortable feelings. And as soon as things become uncomfortable, you want to run, you want to retreat, you neglect, you abandon yourself, you abandon your feelings. And that is the ultimate betrayal. Vipassana is without the Vipassana basically is you're the medicine. You're the medicine. Plant medicines are beautiful. They're amazing. They're assisting the planet in such a profound way that most people cannot comprehend. But when you go back into the spiritual trending community and what's happened to these medicines and how out of integrity a lot of people are, that's another conversation. But I will say
Yeah.
this, my
Yeah.
relationship with grandmother ayahuasca is so special and intimate and personal to me. When I first started drinking ayahuasca, I was like everybody, most people, scared. Holy shit. Am I going to drink again? I'm going back into the Maloka. Oh my God, I can't believe I'm going to go back in. Because what it's doing, it's reflecting back to you what you're holding in your body that's uncomfortable. But the best way to approach
Mhm.
these plant medicines is equanimously, like in Vipassana. And it's important for people
Yeah.
to understand that there's a lot of people out there that cannot be trusted because they haven't processed their own issues, their own trauma, and they're acting out of integrity in many cases and in a lot of ways. Not to say there's not a ton of beautiful practitioners out there, amazing facilitators that are doing
Yeah.
incredible work and assisting thousands, if not millions of people, every day in ceremonies. But you have to be very careful. You
Yeah.
have to vet. You need to know who you're sitting down with. But these plant medicines are there for a reason. And it's like I said, they're there to
Yeah.
reflect back to you what it is that you're holding on to, you're suppressing, repressing in your body, these energies that you're carrying around from the experiences in your life. And also, this is important, what a lot of people pass up because we're talking about ancestral lineage healing, we're talking about soul line healing. Because if you want to go up into these fifth, sixth, and seventh dimensions or higher, is where we're going. You have to do this work. You got to clear it. And those medicines help us to cleanse.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you for this. Obviously, I hope who's ever listening to this, yeah, gets exactly what they need. And if someone's listening to this and they just really resonated with everything you're sharing and they're curious to work with you, where
Probably the
can they
best
find
place
you?
is Instagram at
At
Eric
Eric Nies.
Nies 333.
At Eric Nies 333. And as always, if you are overwhelmed, confused, lost, don't really know where to begin, know who to trust in the world of spirituality, health, wellness, I am always here for you to guide you to the
The
Sherpas
last thing
that
I'm going to
guided me.
say is I am so proud of you to see where
Thank you.
you are at now and to know where you were then and everything that you have done in between. Thank you for doing the work. And thank you for being a beautiful, bright light, powerful goddess, queen of the night for the planet, because this is what we need. We need more people like you, Lana Rose. So I
It
love
is.
you.
Thank
I
you.
know,
It
but
ain't
I
easy.
love you so much and I'm so
Love you.
proud of you. And um, I'm always here for you. You know that.